So today we're going to show you how to change the tire and the inner tube on the S1 Hornet. You may need to do this if you either get a flat or you wear out your tire and you need to replace it. Keep in mind these are pneumatic tires with inflatable inner tubes, so there is a possibility that you will get a flat at some point, or you just may wear out your tire from heavy use. So we will show you how to do that. It's also important to keep in mind that maintaining proper tire pressure is very, very important on these scooters. Riding them underinflated or with no air at all can either cause harm to you or damage your scooter. So you want to make sure before each ride you always put air in the tire and check the tire pressure. So to begin with, we want to sort of kick this up a little bit and just let it rest up here. And what we're going to do is take this unit out here, and you start off by peeling back the grip tape, and you peel it back just enough to reveal the two Phillips screws. All right, you can see that. And then same on the other side. Okay. Get a Phillips head screwdriver. Remove the screws. Okay. Okay. Then what we want to do, just going to turn it around so you can see a little bit better. You have to remove this axle bolt, and I believe that is a 3mm hex. Yep. Always make sure you use the right tool for this. If you only have standard and not metric hex wrenches, get some metric hex wrenches, because you can end up rounding off the bolt and then you won't be able to remove it or put it back on. So make sure it's properly seated in there. This is it does have a bit of Loctite in it, so you may have to put some effort into removing this bolt, but it will come out. There we go. There are two washers in here. Make sure you do not lose track of them. There we are. Put that to the side. Okay, and the other side doesn't have a bolt. Basically, the axle just slides in through. Facing the scooter would be the left side, so you just want to tap it a little bit with something that's not going to damage the screw hole, so it's something that doesn't really go in there all the way, so I'm going to use the back of this. Just put it in here, tap it a little bit, and I'm going to turn this around so you can see. Okay, see it coming out this side. There's your axle. On the bolt side of the axle, keep in mind that there is a lock washer and a spacer that fell out. That was kind of in there like this. Okay, so you'll want to remember the order for when we put it back. So the tire is now out. It's very simple to change a tire in this. It has the 3 bolts that will cause the rim to split open. However, before I proceed, very, very important warning, always make sure the air is completely out of the tire. If you're doing this not because you have a flat, but because you need to replace the tire, there will be air in there. So you need to make sure you release all the air out of the inner tube, or you can get hurt, or you can damage the rim itself. So take that out, get something that's small enough to press on the valve, and let the air all the way out. Very important to remember this step. Okay, so we have 5mm hex bolts in there. They are Loctited, so you will need to put some effort into getting these screws out, but they will come out. If you need to, you can get a vise with either rubber ends on them, or put some rubber protective cloth on it or something to grab a hold of the rim, or you can just grab it with your hand. So what happens is once you take the air out, the rim sort of moves independently, and this is also why you don't want to run these tires underinflated, because this will happen and you will end up permanently damaging the tube and or the tire. So you take your 5mm Allen key, and they will be tight, but just keep at it, they will come out. I loosen them all a little bit first. I don't do it all in one shot. There we go. And the last one. And once we get that last one loose, I just glue them all the way out. The rim is threaded, so there will be no nut on the other side to worry about. So the only thing you need to worry about here is not wearing away or cross-threading the rim, because then you will need a new rim. To get these replacement parts, a tire or a tube or a rim, even if you needed to, we always recommend using Genesis genuine parts, available at ridegenesis.com. Okay, so once you get the bolts out or loose, this just splits right open. Very easy design, very simple to get the tire out. And you see the tube is inside the tire. Still has a little bit of air, but not that much. To make it easier to get out, you can just get the rest of the air out. Again, if you're doing this because it'll flat, then that's not going to be an issue. Okay, pull it out by the stem. You can patch the tire if you have a patch kit. It's just a regular inner tube, or you can purchase a new one. Again, remember this does have an angled stem valve, so make sure that the one that you're getting also has that. And last thing here, you have a spacer you need to make sure you keep track of if you kind of put this aside, or do not put this back without the spacer, so remember that. And to assemble this, it's basically reverse order. Push this, I usually do it through the stem, into the tire. You can just initially just shove it all in there, but then take care to make sure it's evenly distributed, not kinked, not bunched, so that there are no spots for it to either get pinched on the rim or not evenly distributed and then cause problems later on. So there you go. And to put this back, there's a notch on the rim. Each half of the rim has a notch, and that's where the valve will go. Put your spacer. Well, it will float, but just make sure it's in there, not like this. And you got to be careful, because as you're assembling it, it can sometimes tip over on its side, and then you'll never get the axle through. So right there, put the tire right over the notch where the valve is, and you take the other half, same thing, you take the notch, put it in there, line it up. Okay, and you can see, okay, what I like to do, you know, and this is what I mean. So it is tricky, and here's a little trick. Okay, take care initially to make sure it doesn't fall over, line it up, and you take your axle, line it right over the hole, take your axle and you put it through, and assemble it with the axle in there, and you won't have to worry about it shifting or flopping over or anything like that. So it makes the job a lot easier. Take your bolts, put them back. I like to get them in a little bit first. You don't want to tighten one bolt and then have the rest loose. Make sure they're all lined up. Threading properly, you don't want to cross thread this. If you cross thread this, you will need a new rim. And just a little bit on each side until they all sort of stop at the rim. And I don't give it a full tighten just yet. I will do that at the very, very end. So now at this point, you're ready to, again, you want to grab a good grip because this will slide on the rim. And give it a nice tiny, you see like the stem is still exactly how it's supposed to be, pop sticking out so you can put air in it. Feel free to put Loctite on this when you put it back. It will help it stay in place longer. And you should maintain these every once in a while. Just check the bolts on it, make sure they're not coming loose. And definitely check the air pressure before you ride each time. Remove the axle and ready to mount it back onto the scooter. Okay. So with this, the way they come from the factory, and that's the way I will always put them back, is the bolts on the left side of the scooter, the threads of the bolts on the right side of the scooter. So that's the way I'm going to do it. Put it in there. Get your axle. Okay, now here you may have to put this on its side because of that spacer is actually floating around in there. So maybe a little bit of a trick to get the spacer steady. And once you get it through a little bit, you're good to go. It's not going to go anywhere. So you may have to play with the spacer a little bit. Even from in here, you can just sort of nudge it. All right. Once you see it popping through, you then want to take your outer spacer, put it in there, nudge it all up a little bit more. Okay. And it is keyed, so there's a flat side on the bolt that needs to line up with the flat cutout on the frame. So you just spin it a little bit until you feel it going in. There we go. Okay, now that that's exposed, you take your lock washer on the inside, very important. And this will take a few tries, but keep at it, it will easily drop right in. Once you get that in there, you push it the rest of the way through. Alright. Let me set this down and turn it so we can put the final bolt back on. Get your 3mm hex bolt with the two washers. You can put a little Loctite on it if you'd like. I like to start it off and just put it in right with the wrench itself. And you want to make sure this guy is nice and tight, because that's what's holding this wheel in place. Don't be afraid to tighten this guy, just make sure you don't strip the bolt. If you have the Allen, the hex key properly seated, you shouldn't run the risk of that. And there it is. Now, last step is to put the caps back on, and line it up, drop the screws in, get the screwdriver, Phillips head. These you don't have to do super tight. They're just holding these caps in, and they're plastic, so you don't want to strip that plastic, but you know, snug enough so that the part doesn't fall out. All right, put the grip tape back on, do the same to the other side. And last but not least, make sure you inflate this to the proper tire pressure. It is listed on the side of the tire. This one, I'm not sure you'll be able to see this, but it says maximum inflation of 70 psi. Okay, so you want to make sure before you go for a ride each time you check the tires, make sure they have air in them. And that should be it.